Hey guys, what is up? Roshi is here. We're here with another exciting deck. This is one of the decks I used to make the major push into Masters, and from that point, I was able to climb from around the 300 mark, and I got all the way up to 160 with it, so pretty solid. I did end up making a few changes after this list, and I might touch into those later, maybe include them on the Warcry link. But for now, let's just take a look at I want the deck tech to match up to the video, so for now let's just look at, the choices that I made at the time and how that got me there. And then we can talk about the updates later and potentially in the Warcry article, so look out for that. Also stream on Twitch, check it out. I'm probably one of the, easily everyone's favorite Twitch streamer, if not that, probably in at least the top 20 Eternal NA streamers. Yeah. All 10 of us out there, I'm at least in the top 20. Let's just get into it, jokes aside. Ghostblade Outcast is the start. This guy has Exalted and Lifesteal, and why that matters will come up just now. Let's look at the main theme of the deck. We've got 4 Kodosh's armor. Your Exalted weapons get played on each of your single factions units instead, and it makes us 2/2/2s with Aegis and Endurance sometimes. The pump ability is super nice, just slamming out +5/+5s. You can do that as much as you want to turn. Pretty solid, and combine that with Lifesteal, and it's going to be really hard to race. Think Trick Shot, but harder to pull off. Next up, we've got Grodov's Burden. Your single faction units have Exalted. Spellcraft 3, yeet something away, and then pay 5, and basically draw the top card. If it's single colored, you put it in play. I like to call it fondly clicking the button. Oftentimes, you just want to click that button and draw cards and bury your opponent in the free card advantage and board presence this will provide you. Our deck in particular, about 27 units, so that's what? Just over a third of the time you're going to be flipping a unit, which is pretty cool. If you do some thinning, you can probably get that down. So I like this card. It's always been a fan. One thing you might have noticed is our single faction units have Exalted when this card is in play. But what's this? Our Exalted weapons get played on each single faction unit instead of just one. So if you're reading what we're trying to do here, once we've got both of these in play, all of our units, when they die, buff all of our other units. So we can spread Killer around, we can spread Flying around, we can spread just all kinds of fun stuff around. Overwhelm, Deadly, Aegis, Endurance. Those are all cards that we can spread around in this deck. And or battle skills. And what that means is our goal is to just kind of stall out till we get these in play, and they're pretty fine on their own, honestly, but once you get them in play, you probably just win the game if you've got any sort of board at all, because it's going to be really hard for them to clear your board. And if you somehow manage to pass Aegis to everything, it's going to be that much more annoying. You can pass Endurance to everything, so if stuff got permafrosted before, you can bring it back online. It's really cool. Let's just look at some of the card choices. Starting out with Ghostblade. This is the only actual card with Exalted we have in the deck. This is the only real way to combo with Kodosh's armor's ability without having other stuff going on. But Kodosh's armor's just fine without that. That's not really that big of a deal. Desert Alchemist. Plunder's good for power fixing. This is our second source of Deadly. And being able to spread Deadly around can be quite important. I'll touch on that a bit more in a moment. Ambush is nice. Just trade with something, and later on it spreads Deadly. Shardbinder. This is our second source of Overwhelm other than Tuvon in the market. And most importantly, Spellcraft or activates are 3 less. So if you can curve out a Shardbinder into Kodosh's armor, or, play on turn 5, you play a Shardbinder and a Kodosh's armor, or, turn 7, you could play it with Grodov's Burden. Gives you a nice little handy discount, and if Shardbinder's just been sitting in play and hasn't died, you can kind of go turn 2 Shardbinder, turn 3 Kodosh's armor, and put a bunch of 2/2s in play, and then maybe they don't have an out or anything, and then you play Grodov's Burden and just minus bottom something, and then now you've just probably won the game right there. So that's one of the god curves, but it actually happens more often than you'd think, and if they're just playing like Permafrost and stuff for removal, you know, they might not really have a good answer. They might try to save Turn to Seed for something else, but in our deck, Shardbinder might be one of the best things for us to have down. Pesky Seedling. This guy has Killer. This is one of the best and easiest ways to spread Killer around the board. Fun fact, this guy has Corrupted. So, if a unit... So let's say we kill our Pesky Seedling by attacking something, and we've got the combo in play of, you know, both Kodoshes and Grodovs. Well, it's going to spread Killer and the buffs from this guy onto the Corrupted Shade. So Corrupted units kind of double dip in our deck, because whenever they're able to, you know, survive a board wipe or something, like a Solar Blast, or an undecimated Shenra Speaks, or something along those lines, and pass all of those buffs onto the Corrupted unit, which can be important. Increasing stuff in their hand. Honestly, it's more important to just know what's in their hand than it is to actually increase the cost, but hey, it's free, we take it. We're mostly just playing this for the killer, but sometimes it matters, usually it doesn't, but it's free real estate. Next up, we've got Rectifier. You can summon this, silence something. This ends up being way better than it seems. The fact that it has Corrupted is nice as well. Unfortunately, this is the worst Corrupted unit in our deck because it's a 0/1 afterwards, so if it dies on our turn or like their turn, you might not get a chance to chump block with the Shade. But being able to silence is important, and half the time we just sacrifice the Shade to silence something, so it's good. It definitely earns its slot. There's a lot you want to silence right now, and we don't mind having this. Scorpion Wasp. This is our second source of deadly, while also being our primary source of flying. Being able to pass flying around your whole team, I don't really need to explain how important that is, but this guy will give your whole team flying and deadly, so your opponent's going to have a lot of fun trading in combat with everything you play from that point on, which is cool. Deadly is also... I've kind of showed off each of the pieces, but let me combine them and maybe it'll make more sense what I was talking about before. If you give a unit Deadly and Killer and Overwhelm, you are able to suicide your units into your opponent's units. It will deal 1 point of damage to that unit, and everything else is going to overkill over that unit into your opponent's face. So you can just randomly get lethal in this deck from like a board stall by just offing your units into theirs, purposefully trading them so that they die, and pass the weapons around. And each time you're getting more and more damage and upgrading to killing, you know, hopefully better units that also kill yours, until your opponent's left with an empty board, or at least devoid of big threats, and you've passed all your buffs around to like one big unit, and maybe even just killed them on the spot. So it's pretty cool. It's a very fun interaction we have. I say fun, but it's fun for us. Gentle Grazer. We got a lot of 2-drops and 1-drops we want, Shardbinder being the most important, but hitting a Calibrate or a Time Etchings is just fine. The low roll here is probably Ghostblade Outcast, but, you know, against aggro, Ghostblade Outcast holds its own, so we honestly don't mind having that. Another thing to touch on Ghostblade Outcast, it's not usually correct to just slam this down on turn 1. Try and have something else on the board, or, you know, maybe if you're on the play and you're going to play a 2-drop, you can go ahead and play him. But don't just play him into your opponent's burn spell. Make sure you've got something else on the board, and then, like, use it to chump block and pass lifesteal. Don't just slam it on 1 and, like, attack once and then let it die. Like, it's not worth it. Svetya, this is just one of the ultimate top ends of this deck. We're only playing 2, there's not a ton of room. We could probably make room for more, but, sometimes the triple green can be annoying, and, you know, we don't need too many 6-drops. This is kind of a plan B or a way to close out the game or, like, buy time. But, you know, we do want some top end, and Svetya is just the most obvious include. It's very resilient to Turn to Seed. They've got to do a lot of work to break through the Aegis and then fire the Turn to Seed off. And being able to just surge your whole deck, we're playing quite a few minions, and if you get 1 or 2 surges off, that's a pretty significant pump, and now all of our weenies are even better, and they're passing even better stats around. Being able to turn off minions coming into play can be very important. You know, there's all kinds of ambush running around, but stopping any random surprise blockers or stopping them from playing more aggression, just Svetya ends up being pretty cool. If you're really into Svetya, I would potentially try and make room for 4 of her, but I only have 2. I'm happy with it. I have the full playset. I just, you know, I didn't want to be too top heavy because we're already playing Kodosh's armor and Grodov's burden, so we only have so much room for big stuff. Into the support cards, running 4 Calibrate just lets us hit our combo pieces or just power in the early game. Time etchings, this is our market access of choice. It gives us a very solid market. I'll hop into that after. Enter the Monastery, being able to just ramp super hard, it's nice. Some of the best games we have are when we choose to, or when we hit Enter the Monastery, sometimes even in multiples, and we're able to just quickly guarantee power drops for the game, ramp ahead, just does a lot, and it's one of the main ways we're able to hit high justice requirements, which helps us a ton with Svetya and Equalize. And speaking of Equalize, we're playing Equalize. There's just not... Sometimes our plan just doesn't work out, or we're playing against a deck that just goes super wide, or, you know, sometimes we're just run out of cards. Equalize is just a very versatile card at saving you, and when it's bad, you just throw it to the market. It's not even a big deal. So you could potentially play 4 of this too, because oftentimes it's the only card that'll save you on certain boards, and it definitely pulls its weight. There's been times where I've used it as just a hard discard spell on our opponent, where I've just played a bunch of stuff, maybe I was really light on card draw or something, and even if we're even on board, I'll just be like, oh hey, I can cast this Equalize and just rip 4 cards out of our opponent's hand. It's a good way to tone down some of the Helio decks. You know, they'll fire off their Helio and they'll draw 2 or 3 or 4, and then you just like play Equalize and just rip all those cards out of their hand before they can play them. It's a solid line. They'll still keep whatever's the best unless you somehow get your hand down to 0. But this card pulls its weight, and it will save your ass. So I like it. For the power base, we've got plenty of sigils here. This is to maximize Enter the Monastery. You may consider cutting a few of these for justice symbols, and that'll give you some more consistency with Equalize and Svetya, but that is up to you. I prefer to just have the maximum number of hits for Enter the Monastery, but Symbol is just as good of an alternative if you want to play a few of those. Other than that, we have Time Symbol, playing the Vows, playing the Seats, and just a few Time Sigils for our Time Etchings. And that is the main deck. Let's hop into the market. We've got Swirl the Sands, just a really solid catch-all. Sometimes you just really want cheap Flying Hate or cheap Relic Hate, and this fits the bill. Sandstorm Titan, just additional Flying Hate. Potentially this card could be swapped out for something like Nahid's Distillation or some other draw card effect. That is up to you. I just wanted to max out on ways that I could not die in the market and let my main deck handle the card draw. But you could choose to tune this, and that could be a potential option. Lumen Defender, just gaining 5 life is important in certain matchups, and the 1/5 deadly is no slouch. Sometimes gaining life is more important than wiping the board. Speaking of wiping the board, we're playing Shenra Speaks in the market. We get to access this since we're Combri. One of the best removal spells in the format. But we are a creature deck, so we just have this in the market for when we need it. Thanks to some of our corrupted units, sometimes you can pop this off and, you know, pass all your buffs around to the shade and still have a board after. Keep that in mind, but it's just a really good catch-all, and, you know, we need something like this in the market. We're glad to have it. Tuvon, this is removal and card draw, and it's a good way to pass Overwhelm around, so he's sold. This is our usual method of card draw. It's not an insane amount, but oftentimes you'll have a good bit of power, so you'll ambush him in, maybe kill something, or just end of turn it, and then draw 2 off of him, and then even if they kill it, at least you still got a nice little card draw there. And that's the deck. Here comes the videos. Enjoy. Hey guys, what is up? I just wanted to give a little quick outro for this. Decided to change up how I do things on my YouTube. Previously, I would have, you know, a really long, like 15-minute deck tech, and then I'd hop into the games. But I kind of noticed that the videos were getting extremely long, and I'm super excited to show you guys all the games. But I think what I'm going to do is I'll have the deck tech be its own video, and then that way, that leaves me a lot of leeway to add more games and give you guys more content of the gameplay, while also keeping the YouTube videos, you know, shorter and more to a point, you know, focusing what I'm doing. Let me know down in the comments if you find this to be a better change or if you'd prefer me to go back to the old way. Just experimenting, trying new things, and I appreciate you guys hanging around this long, and thank you for watching.